Hello, welcome back, and we are talking about my targeting list. These are players that I'm really high on for this year that I think can really deliver you fantasy gold for your teams. There are also players that aren't really being targeted. This guy we mentioned a few weeks back, and since we mentioned him, he has skyrocketed his ADP. He was sitting just under the 16 value when we started talking about him. He's moved up to 11 now. And 11 is massive actually in the first round of any draft. The reason being that it's incredibly difficult to move up there because the top guys are all set. But this chap, JHI, is absolutely fantastic for this season. And it's also been backed up by what Miami have said. I'm very high on him for this year. I really believe in him for this year. And I believe he can deliver some fantastic numbers. Now, there are a lot of good running backs. But I'm fully on board with JHI for this season because I think he can deliver something along the lines of something like 1,200 yards, 8 touchdowns is realistic. He could crank out as high as 1,400 rushing yards and maybe 35 to 40 receptions, 250 or so yards, and maybe a touchdown to go along with it. You start adding these numbers together, you start thinking about this, and you're talking about a combined 1,650 yards and maybe 11 touchdowns. That is elite numbers. This is a guy that's going to crank out 220 fantasy points this year. JHI is to be believed. Now, obviously, Miami have some issues in terms of the way they operate. We know that the offense, in some ways, is held back. We can talk about players like Jarvis Landry for those reasons, and maybe even put Devontae Parker in that and Kenny Stills. But the truth is, at running back, the way to gain stability is to have a good running back. And JHI came on leaps and bounds last year. A lot of people will point to the fact that his points came from only really 3 games. And I understand the risks on this, but I think this is because they really weren't using him efficiently enough. No one puts out 3 200-yard games and hasn't got something about their game that makes them exceptional. I'm expecting him to have an amazing year this year, and I have no doubt taking JHI if he falls to me. Now, the truth is he's climbing up the ADP charts, and I'm not at all surprised since we mentioned him. Other people now, other fantasy enthusiasts have begun to get on board, and I totally understand that because they've suddenly realised how good this could be. And New England's news of saying they're going to use him more in the receiving game will definitely add to his value. Yes, one of the biggest risks really I see is the fact that he is really on borrowed time. He's on borrowed time because we know that his knee at any point could go. He showed none of that last year. I don't expect to see any more of it this year, but I will be monitoring the snap counts. I will be monitoring how many carries he gets this year, and we'll make a decision on him next year. But his upside is absolutely massive. He has the potential to produce top 5 RB numbers in 2017. Have no doubts about it. And you too could have a player at the back end of the draft as good as those top end guys. He may even out-surprise you. Would it shock anybody if he outperformed Devontae Freeman, McCoy, all those other guys outside the top 3? Would it surprise you? Maybe even outperform Melvin Gordon. It wouldn't surprise me.